Okay, 81 to the power of minus a half. Right, we have to work out the value of this. So what should we do first? Well, let's get rid of the minus, okay? We'll deal with that first because that makes things difficult. So we have something to a negative power. Well, that means anything to a negative power means 1 over the thing to positive power. In other words, take the inverse. So 81 to the power of minus a half is the same as 1 over 81 to the power, the whole thing, so introduce brackets, to the power of a half, okay? Because 1 over x can also be written as x to the power of minus 1, okay? So, in other words, x to the power of minus 1 is 1 over x to the power of 1, which is just 1 over x. Okay? Good. So, we have a fraction. The whole thing is being raised to the power of a half. Raising something to the power of a half means take the square root. So again, x to the power of a half is the same as writing the square root of x. So, when you have a fraction being square rooted, it means take the square root of the top number and take the square root of the bottom number. Okay? So, what's the square root of 1? Well, it's just 1. What's the square root of 81? It's 9. 9 times 9 is 81. So that's it. Good. Next, we have 64 over 125 to the 2/3. Okay. How do we approach this? Well, the thing to do is to split up this 2/3 into a third times 2. Okay? So we'll rewrite that as 64 over 125, okay? Now 2/3 is a third times 2, okay? Now, we're going to use one of the very important rules you need to know about powers, okay? Which is that something to some power, okay, all in brackets, I call this the bracket rule, raised to another power, okay, is the same as x, you multiply these numbers. The bracket rule, you multiply the powers. So that's the same as x to the power of a times b, okay? We're going to use that. Not to be confused with x to the a times x to the b. In that case, you multiply the powers, okay? That's, you add the powers. Okay, that's x to the power of a plus b. Okay, the brackets, you multiply the powers. When multiplying, you add the powers. Good, okay. So we're going to use this one. And we're going to go in that direction, actually. So the x is this whole thing, 64 over 125, okay? A is a third and b is 2. So it's currently in that form there, okay? A third times 2. We're going to introduce another bracket, okay? So it becomes 64, you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. 64 over 125, okay? To the power of a third. Now we're introducing another bracket, okay? Squared, like so. Make sense? Okay? So you need to know this rule in order to do this question. Because now what we can do, we have 64 over 125 to the power of a third. We'll deal with the outer bracket and the squared in a minute. But first we can do 64 to the power of a third. In other words, take the cubed root of 64. And we can also take the cubed root of 125. Like I was saying here, when you have a fraction in a bracket raised to a power, you can treat them individually, do the top and the bottom. A third, okay, anything to the power of a third means take the cubed root. Okay, so we have to take cubed root of 64 and the cubed root of 125. So we'll leave the outer brackets alone, squared. So the bit inside, cubed root of 64 is 4, okay? Because 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. Cubed root of 125 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, times another 5 is 125. So you see how we've broken it down? You have to know this rule here. And now it's easy. We just do 4 squared is 16 and 5 squared is 25. So that's it. That whole thing is 16 over 25. Now, I could have written this with the squared inside and the third outside. So it would also be mathematically correct to write this. So a third on the outside and 64 over 125 to the power of 2 on the inside, because 2 times a third is the same as a third times 2. Order of multiplication doesn't matter. I did it this way because I didn't want to do 64 squared, okay? This is a non-calculator paper. If you find something like that happening, okay, just take a pause and go back a step and say, okay, surely they don't expect me to do 64 times 64 and 125 times 125 and then take the cubed root of whatever number that is, okay? So if you come across something like that, it's just a sign that maybe you can do something better in the previous step. So if you get that, just say, oh yeah, okay, I'll do the third first. In other words, take the cubed root first, because that's much easier than doing 64 squared and 125 squared. Excellent, there you go. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please click the like button, and it would be a massive help if you could subscribe. It would also be amazing if you could support me on Patreon. All the papers and everything are on my website, drjem.com, and I'm also on social media. Thank you.